Right, good afternoon. Today is September 27th, 2022. This special meeting of the Lake Oswego City Council is now in order. Ms. Linder, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Buck.
Here.
Councilors Winland.
Here.
Wynn.
Here.
Burdick.
Here.
Mans.
Here.
And Mboop.
Here.
Councilor Rapp is excused.
This special meeting is around the wastewater treatment plant project, and our first item on the agenda is an executive session. So I'll ask Attorney Boone to please read us the parameters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Lake Oswego City Council will now meet in executive session for the purposes of ORS 192-660E to conduct deliberation with persons designated to negotiate real property transactions and to consider records exempt by law from public inspection. Representatives of news media and designated staff will be allowed to attend the executive session. All of the members of the audience will not be allowed to attend, and there are one person present. We'll be meeting in the council workroom. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision will be made in executive session. At the end of the session, the council will return to open session in this room.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Boone. We will take a short recess and reconvene in the workroom in executive session.
20 minutes?
Okay, we are back in open session. We are going to continue the meeting with a study session on the wastewater treatment plant project update. To kick us off, we're joined by our Deputy City Manager, Anthony Hooper, with a couple of guests who I'll let him introduce. Mr. Hooper.
Thank you, Mayor Buck and Council. Really appreciate taking the time and doing a special meeting for this topic. I would like to first introduce Jill Jamieson. She is from Illuminati Infrastructure, and she is one of the foremost experts in P3s, especially in financial matters. And then we have Rick Saper. Rick Saper in the crowd. I like to make sure that we acknowledge. And he is of Hawkins, Delafield, and Wood. And then we have a lot of other people in the audience too, including members of the Corolla team, of ACON, quite a few different people up here that is here to answer questions if you need to. And then, of course, I'd like to introduce Lee Ward of EPCOR. He's the project manager and also, kind of my counterpart on the EPCOR side. And then I would like to also introduce Farshad Al-Adadi of City of Portland. He is in charge of their business group. And before we go any further, I think I would like to give some time over to Farshad to kind of give a statement on behalf of Portland. And I'll just say before I do so that the City of Portland has been a fantastic partner with us, and we're very grateful for all the work that you and your team has done. And with that, I'll go let you make a statement. Yep.
Thank you, Anthony. Mayor, Commissioners, for the record, my name is Farshad Al-Adadi. I'm the business manager with BES at City of Portland. And I appreciate the opportunity to just make a couple of comments in support of this program. It's been a very long road for both jurisdictions, and I'm excited to see that we're nearing a conclusion, and a successful conclusion. It's our shared interest to replace the Tryon Creek wastewater treatment plant. And I think there's been a lot of good work evaluating some viable alternatives, and we feel really strongly that the P3 that has been negotiated so far is in both jurisdictions' best interests and is a very viable solution to our shared municipal needs. So I just want to also acknowledge that it has been a fantastic working relationship. I'm relatively late to the party. There's been a lot of pre-work that's happened before I joined the city, and Anthony and Sean and the city staff have been excellent partners, and I'm looking forward to the conclusion of this process and also the concluding the negotiations of the updated IGA that both of our jurisdictions will enter into following this P3. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So let's start the presentation. So starting in December of 2018, the council approved the procurement for this P3 option, and we have been working ever since and going through multiple different steps in order to get to where we are today, which is pretty far progressed with the idea that we're going to go before you on November 15th with some definitive pricing from EPCOR, and also on December 6th for the go, no-go decision on whether to move forward with this project. The reason that we started looking into this at the very beginning was because the City of Portland needed to make some upgrades to their Tryon Creek plant, which we use about 70% of their overall usage. And as they started developing numbers, we started looking into it. We thought, well, could it be possible that it'd be more cost effective and have some other benefits to build a brand new one next door in lieu of having the upgrades? And as we've been progressing through that, it's looking like that is looking very promising. And so with that, I wanted to start with some of the project benefits of the P3 option, which is that it's looking like it's could be the best financially long-term, but we'll have to confirm that when we actually get definitive pricing, which we should know in November. And then we're looking at a state-of-the-art wastewater treatment plant, which is leveraging aqua and array technology, is allowing us to go from basically a plant that exists on 14 acres down to 6 acres. And the plant doesn't use all the 14 acres, but it's a much bigger size plant. And the technology allows us to shrink it and have something much more compact. And then we're able to enclose the buildings too, which is going to allow for us to be a more friendly neighbor. We can do some odor control. We can also design the buildings to look very commercial and not like an industrial site. And then from more environmentally suitable, we're looking at lots of different options, which Lee will actually go through some of those in details to try to make this a very sustainable project. And we're making that a very high priority as we keep moving forward. So I thought it would be good to remind everybody of just our project goals, and this is what we started the project with, and it still is what we're trying to do. So we're trying to keep costs at a level equal to or below the cost of upgrading the plant. We're looking at trying to tie payments to performance over life cycle. We're looking at trying to make it more reliable and also in case there's different types of weather events, that it is able to have redundancy in the processes, and looking at things like earthquake resiliency in all sorts of different areas. And then we're also trying to do this as fast as we possibly can and achieve the earliest date of operations while making sure it's high quality. We're looking at trying to look at the long term of operation and effective maintenance, and I think that's one key with trying to compare us to the City of Portland's option to upgrade the existing, is looking at it on a life cycle basis over 30 years. And I think when you start to expand, look at it that way, I think the proposition of a new plant really comes into play as being more cost effective on a long-term basis. And then lastly, trying to maximize the value for money and look at life cycle costs of what I just said. So I just want to remind everybody that the site that we're looking at is right adjacent to the existing wastewater treatment plant that is right next to Foothills Park. And there's basically 3 properties that we're looking at needing, and that comes to about 6 acres worth. And once again, I think it's important to know that the existing Tryon Creek plant was built in 1964 and needs upgrading. It currently serves both Lake Oswego and Portland, but it is owned by the City of Portland. Under this new arrangement with the P3, it would then be owned by the City of Lake Oswego. So the plant and the land would be owned by the City of Lake Oswego, and then it would be operated and maintained by EPCOR. Also, I mean, they're gonna design, build, and finance it as well. And they would do that over the course of the next 30 years, plus the construction period. And so with that, I think I just want to remind everybody that this is what the existing plant looks like from a bird's eye view, and then that's the kind of the concept. However, it is changing, and actually we're looking at having new renderings that we're coming close to having, because we're going to be actually shifting the site a bit so that the administrative building and the main facility is actually going to be shifted this way to the west side of the site. So that's something that's currently being designed right now, and it's looking like we're able to save some money by doing so. So those renderings and design work is actually going to be unveiled as part of an online open house that we're looking to have in November. This online open house will be available for the public to go and take a look at, and there will be lots of different curated sections. According to, if you're really interested in sustainability, there'll be a sustainability section for you to click on. There's also an interactive chart to see how the process works for the wastewater treatment process. There'll also be videos and renderings. So there'll be a lot of information, and then people can then go on and give feedback at the bottom of that too. So we'll have that open for an extended period of time, starting, we're looking probably early November, we're releasing it, and we're pretty excited. I think it's going to be a great little event. We've also done other outreach events leading up to this, but I think this will be a good kind of cap before we get to the go, no-go decision. So I'd like to kind of remind everybody of this process and where we're at in it. So this is a progressive process, meaning that we have hired EPCOR at a stage where they're doing preliminary services for us. Some P3s, they don't get hired until actually their design is finished and they end up bidding it. This is a little bit different in that we're working very collaboratively together. So we're basically getting close to definitive project submittal. We're in between design of 60% and that last task 4 step. There's a lot of other things that are going in tandem with that. We're doing cost development. We're working on permitting, including with DEQ. We're looking to advance the WIFIA. Our process has been advanced very successfully so far. We're looking like we're able to navigate that process well. And EPCOR has been taking the lead on that. And then also, we're currently in negotiations with EPCOR. We actually had negotiations this morning on a project agreement. And then there's financial close, which will happen after the go, no-go decision and after the project agreement. And then property acquisition we're working on right now. Last thing I'll say about this is, once again, you have an opportunity to do what is called an off-ramp. And that is, you can do that actually at this meeting, or you could do that at the November meeting or at the December 6th meeting. And what that means is that you would, it depends on the reason for it, whether it's for convenience or for cause, but that means that we would sever the relationship with EPCOR. We would then own the design rights up to that point and all the different materials that have been provided by EPCOR. And then we would have to look at other options, whether that, and but I think at this point, I think the staff is recommending that we continue to keep moving forward, keeping to start to keep developing cost and keep going. I think there's more work that we want to keep doing on this project. And I think things look promising. We just don't know until we get final numbers what everything will look to be. One last thing I'll say about this is that construction is looking to be about 3 years total from the time that it happens. And we're looking at wanting to start construction in the summer of 2023. Okay. This is just a quick overview of cost. Once again, this is just a snapshot. EPCOR is working very hard and fast on trying to refine the numbers to get that to us by November. But this kind of gives you a snapshot of where we're at, which is we're currently at $182.3 million. And for the design build costs of the project, and then for O&M, we're currently at $2.9 million. And these costs have all increased. It was actually on that second slide, its operations maintenance costs have increased from 2.5 million to a baseline of 2.9 million. So the 2.5 million is silent, but it's, yeah. Yeah, they're annual, yeah. And then the reasons for these increases are commodities increase, supply chain complications, and inflation and interest rate increases, among other things. Those are just some of them. So on this slide, so far we're looking to project 3.9% rate increases in order to make this project work, which is what would be needed for the existing upgrade option and also the new wastewater treatment plant option. Both have targeted 3.9% increases. This is, I just wanted to give a plug for our website. It's pretty robust. Katie Kirkland, who's in the audience, has done a tremendous job also with Barney and Worth, Tammy and Libby. There's a lot going on that website, including a very extensive frequently asked questions. There's just a lot of material, and you can also sign up to get updates using those, the email contact. So the last thing in the council reports, I asked for the council to give feedback on whether to include this potential project as part of this, which is to irrigate, to run basically pipe along Foothills Road. It would require us to actually dig it up, run purple pipe, irrigation pipe, to the Foothills Park. It would connect to the existing system, and then we would leverage reclaimed water from our new plant, our new facility, in order to irrigate Foothills Park. And the cost to do so is estimated at around $750,000. when you end up financing that amount, that ends up jumping to about 2.1 million over that period of time. And once again, we're looking for the council to give us feedback. One option could be you could either just not do it. I mean, that's an option. Another option is that we could just do what's necessary in order to allow this to happen in the future by doing the upgrades at the plant itself. We estimate that about $500,000. And then with financing about $1.3 to $1.44 million. And so, but then we just weren't running the pipe to connect it. We can do that as a separate project later on. But we'd love some discussion about that, and we'd love some direction about whether to keep pursuing that. And that would be very helpful. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to Lee to talk about the history of EPCOR and go from there.
Sure, thanks, Anthony. So EPCOR is a utility operator, and so we not only operate in the United States and mostly in the Southwest, but we operate in Canada as well. We actually run about 40 wastewater treatment plants, and so operations is a big part of what we do. Unlike contractors, and we aren't contractors, we don't design and we don't build. We get partners who, that's part of their business, that's what they do. So, so we've partnered with a great team here for you. And so we have brought AECON, an infrastructure builder in Canada and the United States. They're actually currently operating in about 4 different states. And we've partnered with a local contractor, Filance. So, we get that knowledge and we were able to deliver, here for Lake Oswego. We've also contracted with Wood as our designer. They have a local presence here in Lake Oswego, and they've been a great designer to work with on this project. And then we've got various other parties working with us to deliver this project. P3s are pretty complicated. There's a lot of different aspects to P3s: design, build, finance, operate, maintain. So, you need to bring a team together to do that. And I think we have a great one for you. The treatment process, as Anthony mentioned, that we're bringing to Lake Oswego is quite leading edge. It's not bleeding edge. We don't like going bleeding edge. We want things that are tried and true, and if we're going to guarantee them to you, we want to know they work. So we're bringing a process called Aqua Narita to you. It has a lot of basis, or it's based on a lot of existing technologies, but there are some nuances to it that enable us to build on a smaller site, that enable us to actually get to a tertiary level of treatment versus just a secondary level of treatment, which is being done currently in Lake Oswego. And so some of the elements of the plant are, we do collect the influent, as Anthony mentioned, from Portland and from Lake Oswego. We'll be putting that through screening and screening out all the plastics and all the other things that come to you in wastewater that shouldn't be flushed down the toilet or added to the collection system. And then we remove the grit, and the grit is just sand and that kind of material that resides in the collection system. And so by doing that, we protect the main treatment system. So our secondary treatment is, like I say, Aqua Narita. The big secret sauce, if you will, with Aqua Narita is in the sludge type, is how the sludge matures, how it grows, and the level of treatment it's able to actually do inside that basin. Then once we've gone through the Aqua Narita process, we actually are adding tertiary filtration to the plant, and that'll ensure that we get to our total suspended solids levels, and we're able to reach the phosphorus levels that we want to reach with the plant. And so that's a little bit of guarantee. Plus, it really helps in a storm flow situation. So we have big storm flows here in Lake Oswego, but we'll have those tertiary filtration systems at the end of the process to make sure that we filter out any deleterious materials or things like that. From there, it will go into the UV system, and we'll be using UV instead of chlorine. We're getting away from chemical systems and chlorination. UV is you know, more of a natural process. And then we'll be discharging to the Willamette River. On the other byproduct of wastewater treatment, of course, is solids. So you have the liquid stream, which I just explained, and then you have the solid stream. And so part of that solids is what we separate out from the aqua-nerida process. You know, goes into the ancillary basins, but basically we're then taking that product, we're thickening that product, and then we're actually pumping it into a truck, and we'll be shipping it off to Columbia wastewater treatment plant for further treatment and then dispersion onto farmers' fields eventually. So that's the process. It's like I say, it's a pretty exciting process. 6 acres, it was quite a challenge that you presented us with, and there were only a couple options that would fit that, but we're really quite happy with this one. We did go on a field trip so that we could kind of get a real first-hand look at the results and the actual operation of the plant, and we were pretty impressed by what we saw. So we're going to be obviously building you know, resiliency and reliability into the project. We've had a lot of discussion about the seismically active area during contract discussions and insurance discussions. We're pretty aware of that. We will be building to a Category 4, which is the highest category that you can build to here. So I think that really helped with the insurance questions and some of those other questions that came our way at the end of the day. So, we are building on a floodplain, as you're all well aware. And so there are a whole bunch of conditions that we have to build to. And 2 of them that were outlined in the requirements of the RFP were to make sure that, you know, we're building for a 1 in 100-year flood with the main treatment units, but that any main electrical systems have to be built to withstand a 1 in 500-year flood. So we're actually designing that in and making sure we comply with that. We have had a lot of discussion and a lot of meetings with the Sustainability Network and others, Oregon Energy Trust, and so we've been interacting with all of those groups to try to see what we can do in the way of sustainability, environmental benefits. So we are looking at solar panels, and that's currently included in our design and our budget. We're looking at the reuse of facility water on site, so instead of discharging the treated water to the river, we'll be recirculating that back into the plant for plant service water. And so saving on water, potable water, and it really produces a high quality effluent. So it is great water to be able to do that with. And so instead of discharging, why not offset potable water use? And then resiliency and reliability, talking about, again, we talked about the fact that we are going to be treating very high wet weather flows, and in fact up to 53 million gallons a day. We are designing redundancy and backup systems into the plant, making sure that we can withstand those failures that sometimes happen without an interruption in service. We're looking at standby power, and we'll be building a genset into the design. And then there's an emergency bankside outfall for those extreme wet weather flows that are maintained throughout a long period of time. And I think that's over to you, Jill.
Mayor Buck, council members. So I just feel a little inadequate because I don't think that wastewater treatment is exciting as perhaps EPCOR does, but it is truly an important project. I think it's good to remind ourselves of kind of how we got here, right? So Anthony mentioned, I think it was early 2018 that this process launched. And it was always launched with a certain understanding that there were 2 periods. The first period is a preliminary services period, which is what we're in now. So at the time, there was a lot of talk, but there was no certainty in terms of whether or not, is it possible to build a new plant, a replacement plant for a cost similar to that of upgrading Tryon Creek? people were saying it, but we're like, well, how do we know, right? So instead of going out and bidding and betting every bottom dollar on that, the council made a wise decision to advance in a more progressive, or let's say more thoughtful process. So this first stage, the preliminary services, which you, to Anthony's point earlier, you have the opportunity to off-ramp at any point in time, was really designed to give you the ability to make an informed decision at the end of the preliminary services about whether to proceed or not to proceed. It's an objective moment. So the look at this is really EPCOR and their team. They've been doing a great job advancing from a basis of design to a 30% to a 60% design. But on top of that, they've been advancing on the permitting front with cost estimation, financial structuring, WIFIA applications, O&M plans, commissioning and decommissioning plans. So there's just a lot of information that's been developed during this preliminary services plan. We're not at the end of it yet, though, right? So we're still in this. So yes, we have 60% designs and some plus. We still don't have full visibility into the pricing yet. So there is no recommendation from staff in terms of go or no go because we don't know. that rhymed unintentionally, but I kind of liked it. So I think that's an important thing. The preliminary services period is being floated or financed by EPCOR, so you guys are not out of pocket paying them. You are out of pocket paying some advisors around this, Carollo, Hawkins, myself, and others. But generally speaking, if you proceed with the process, those costs that EPCOR has incurred to date would just roll into sort of the availability payments that you would start to pay in the future once the system was up and running. So it's a 30-year period if we go to the next stage. After the off-ramp or decision to go or no go, you make that decision. After that, then you start into what we call the project agreement. So that's the P3. They finalize the designs, they finish construction, and then they operate. With you guys beginning payment only upon operational readiness of the facility. So there's still many years before you would actually pay. But this is the way it was always conceived, right? And so you're coming up to the point where you actually will have that full information. You'll be able to make an informed decision about whether or not you're going to proceed. Whether you continue with the process or off-ramp, that's entirely your decision at this point in time. I think not today, because as I said, we don't have enough information to make that recommendation. But I do think the process has worked as was originally planned, which I think is also a positive thing, right? So these are some of the options. So November 15th will be a study session. Early November, we're going to be getting information on the pricing, the cost. We're going to have an ability to really dig in. There's a lot going on in terms of pricing. Even though we do not have full visibility into it today, we recognize, as Anthony's earlier slide mentioned, that there have been some inflationary adjustment. Prices are going up across the board. Interest rates have gone up across the board, but we need to make sure that you're getting a competitive price for this, and that's what we're looking at as we go forward. Should you decide to off-ramp, or if you decide this is not in the best interest of the people of Lake Oswego, of Portland, that is your right. And so to Anthony's point, you can make this decision on a number of bases. If there's an exceedance of the affordability threshold, you could off-ramp without cause. If it's for convenience, you guys just change your mind. You're like, you know what, I'm really emotionally tied to the Tryon Creek plan. I'd like to go back and revisit that, which can also happen. It's within your rights. These are some of the things that you can look at. Depending on how you move forward, that would determine, or the reasons for the off-ramp, that would determine how much the compensation is. That compensation is split between Portland and Lake Oswego, so there are probably some discussions that would need to be had there with both parties. If you did that, then you have the world is your oyster in terms of options, right? I mean, nobody's saying that you would have to do any one thing, but if you off-ramped, you could reboot the process, you could go with a design build, you could go with a design build operate, you could do nothing and just go to Tryon Creek. So these sorts of options would then be presented to you after the fact. I don't think that should be what you should be thinking about at the moment of making the go, no-go decision, right? The go, no-go decision should be on the merits of what is presented in front of you, not in terms of what are the myriad of options that could come after that, right? There will be a comparative assessment in terms of, is this a good deal for the city and the ratepayers? But it would be impossible for all practical purposes for us to go through 500 different contracting options and say, we think this one would cost this much and the other, because without going to bid, we would never know, right? So we can give you expert judgment and opinions and tell you if we think you've got a good deal, but in terms of the next steps, we would really have to dig into that separately. And that one I did, sorry. And some final thoughts. As I mentioned, this process was designed from day one to minimize your risk, to allow you the opportunity to make a fully informed decision. We get that it's been a little painstaking, right? There's a lot of information coming to you pretty regularly, a lot of details. But that was the point of this, right? So that you can make the best decision for the people of Lake Oswego, and you will have that opportunity in the coming months. The off-ramp and termination provisions provide you with that opportunity to opt out at any point in time. It's always been that. Even if you go forward with the contract, I just want to be clear, the P3 contract, you as a city always have the right to terminate for convenience or anything else, right? So you're not like, oh my God, if we do this, we are in this for the rest of our lives. There are always ways out of the contract. It costs you, certainly, but you want to make an informed decision, and you want to make a very sober decision about what you're going to be looking at the next 30 years. There's significant transfer of pricing risk to the project company, both during the preliminary services and the PSA. So they are owning the cost right now in terms of cost overruns, if they have them or not. We don't really care in terms of the services you're providing right now. They gave you a firm cost for that and a firm price. I have to say, from my perspective, they've been very reasonable. They have not been coming back and saying, oh, we want to charge more for this and that. They've been good partners in that regard. And also during the project agreement, I mean, they do own cost overrun risk and those sorts of things. So this is part of it, that we'll be transferring that. But we're not transferring all risk to them, as I think we've talked about in previous things. You know, the purpose of this is to optimize risk allocation. So assign risk to the party who is best positioned to manage it. They're not in a good position to manage all risks. So if there's, you know, macroeconomic shifts and we've got currency issues, or they can't handle that any better than the city can in terms of interest rates, right? And so some of those risks are shared. You'll see in the project agreement how we think through 1,000 different issues. Well, what happens if A, B, and C? Who owns that risk? How do we do the adjustment? And that's why the contract, the project agreement, is about this thick. There's a lot of information, and I think it'll be incumbent on us to get you guys up to speed in terms of what the provisions are, what sort of liabilities or contingent liabilities lie within the city for that. And finally, I would say, just as an observer to this process as well as a participant, what I've seen thus far gives me great hope and confidence in the ability to move this forward. EPCOR is a world-class firm, and their partners, AECON, Phelon, they've been doing a very good job working 24/7. The city as well, kudos to you guys and to your staff, and Anthony and Erica and everyone, Evan. Just working full out. I mean, I don't know that in all projects we get this kind of collaboration and this kind of solidarity, really, in many respects, working shoulder to shoulder to try to bring about the best outcome. And I think thus far the process has worked really well. There are elements that are outside everyone's control, including some of the pricing elements that we have to look at. But I think as an example of how this should work thus far, this has worked quite well. So my kudos to everyone involved. And I think that's all I had for you. Do you have anything else?
So let's turn it over to you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for any questions.
Okay, well, thank you all so much. I'd really like to publicly recognize the work of Mr. Hooper and his city colleagues and other partners, Jill, Carollo, EPCOR, that you've been in this work you've been embarking on over a long period of time for our community members that have brought us to this day. I also want to especially thank our neighbors, the city of Portland, for being such a great all-around partner with us in this process. You've been a great partner with us in the current facility, and we appreciate your work on this next phase. And of course, the reason we're all here is for the ratepayers in LO and the ratepayers in Portland who will be paying for this new facility. And in that regard, the partnership and the effort, only gets us so far. So at the end of the day, there are, real rates being paid by real people who expect that we seek the best deal possible on their behalf. So while we are very positive about many aspects of this project, the technology, the energy efficiency, the sustainability features, work through in cooperation with local members of the sustainability community here, which we really appreciate, and the promise, of a beneficial alternative to redoing the current plant that this project pursues. Those are all, that this project presents are all really big positives. But we are absolutely concerned about the price increase, and the increase is frankly unacceptable. And we're kind of growing weary of the continual blaming of the untoward increases on the pandemic boogeyman and these other externalities that we're expected to simply roll over and accept as the truth, because I think we all know better. And we know that conditions are changing. We know that the environment is not as dire as I think EPCOR would like us to think. And so we're all coming in here, eyes wide open and hoping for the best, but the deck really is in your hands. And we want to see that continued good partnership that this project is built on manifested in transparent numbers that we can really feel good about as we come to kind of that no-go decision on this project. So we're hoping for the best. I share the positive sentiments that Jill expressed, but we really are here for the ratepayers, and we're going to make sure this is a great deal for folks in Lake Oswego and our neighbors in Portland as well. Hey, Collins, do you have any questions? Councilor Mans?
If I can get my, Thank you, Mayor. You expressed most of what I needed to say, so I don't need to speak as long. This is actually a question directed toward Mr. Hooper. I don't know if you have the answer to this. We often hear from our ratepayers about what they're paying for various services. That may be one of the larger things that we hear in grocery stores or, street corners and car window down. But when are we looking at, for example, our lowest bond dropping off? How many more years do we have on that? Do we know?
Yeah.
Let us get back to you.
Yeah, we'll get back to you.
You asked the question when the finance director is not here, and he would have it on the tip of his fingers, but I don't think we know off the top of our heads. So
Okay,
let us get you an accurate response.
Right, if somebody could let me know
Unless
about
Eric
that.
and,
Actually, you know what? It's coming to me.
I tell you what, whatever Mr. Hooper tells you, we will double check with the finance department tomorrow.
It's fine, it's fine. The only reason I bring it up is that fiduciary responsibility that we do have to the ratepayers, and just the fact that people are weary. I think that EPCOR would make an excellent partner if, and I'm hoping, because I think the product is very exciting and spent a lot of time learning about it personally, we can get to that point where we can have that transparency that we would feel absolutely good going to our ratepayers and being citizens of Lake Oswego and saying, wow, look what we have done, not only for us, but for our children and new residents who are going to come in over that 30 years at least. So if we can get to that point, it'd be absolutely fabulous. But I do want to thank EPCOR at this point, as we go through this process, for being what I think to be the excellent partner that you could be through that future. So if you could get back to me on that lowest thing, that'd be great.
So I'm 95% sure this is right, because I have it.
And I believe it.
So fiscal year 2034-35 is when it's estimated drop off, which is 13 years from now.
Okay, thank you
Yeah.
for that. I just want to make a note of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mans.
I knew you would know it.
Councilor Wendland.
Well, it's been a process, that's for sure, that you've been going through, and we thank you for the update. I feel like you're all part of the family now, and we may make you an American citizen before this is all out. So that's our hope. One of the things that we've been going down for a fairly long time frame. We're getting closer to the numbers according to what you reported. I guess, and I agree with what our mayor said, it does get down to pricing and rates. I mean, it's, well, it also has to do with functionality and dependability, because sewer is one of those things you do not want to fail. So, I mean, it's, we don't want to compromise performance. When we talk about this system going in, we want to make sure that it works without any pause, and it's fully operational all the time because it's water and sewer are two primary things. And just a note on your slide, I find it interesting that it comes in this on your slide the same color as it goes out. So you might change color schemes, but
He said something about secret sauce.
secret sauce, that's right. There is some secret sauce, but anyway, I do hope that the value that we're putting in here does change the color somewhere along the way, but there's a, right. I guess, when do you expect for us to get pricing from EBCOR so that you guys are all, what I don't want to have happen is this council and then our partners in Portland have 24 hours to make a decision. And I guess we need to have some realistic expectations on timeframes. And I know that we're making our final decision in December. There's a lot hanging on this with, once the go-no decision is made, there's some fairly tight timeframes that we have to get some things done. And I don't, if we can't make a decision with good information, the only way that you can make is to make a decision later. And so is there an expectation of when we'll have sort of finite numbers?
Yes, I think right now we're aiming for October 27 is that's our submittal to you. And thank you for sharing the burden of having to sort of speed the schedule up. One of the things we did, as Anthony mentioned, in order to save a substantial amount of money at the 11th hour was to actually shift the whole site around. And when you do that, now you're affecting the influent piping into the plant, you're affecting the effluent piping, you're affecting the stormwater drainage, everything, a lot of things change. So we're working hard to get through that. We had a really great design meeting last week to finalize some of those things and come back to the city to just clarify the stormwater drainage. So I think we've got that in good hand now, and we're working through that quickly. But we are going through the process already for for some of the
Part of your learning curve to be an American, don't worry. It's about time that you get it right.
We're going to do a project here. And so we are getting some quotes back right now for various parts of the plant that we don't have to wait for that design change. So equipment vendors and things like that, we're getting updates from them as we speak. So we're really working hard to have the updated numbers to you on not only capital, but for operations and the repair and replacement plan that happens over 30 years. And that'll be to you by October 27th is our promise to you.
And do you find that information that you're getting back, and I don't want you to spoil the whole surprise, but are you finding it more favorable? Economic conditions have changed in the last 60, 90 days. And so I think, and as you know, we live in a very savvy community here that is very tied to the financial markets and to basically building development, construction, and so on. And so our constituents here are very A-type people that want to look at a project and see where we must be getting a good deal now because things are going to start coming out. And so are you starting to get indicators from the marketplace that people are less contingency oriented and less, I would say, skeptical of what's happening, and they're starting to drive in more realistic numbers?
Councilor Wendland, it's interesting when you look at the different aspects. So for instance, lumber is one thing that's really come down.
Right.
Stainless steel, on the other hand, is just out of this world. It's crazy the prices we're getting back on something like stainless steel. Plastics were really going crazy. They're coming back to earth a little bit in terms of, they're not rising meteorically like they were through the last, the last 6 months. You're right, in the last couple months, things have calmed down a little bit, but there are still those outstanding sort of supply chain issues we're running into. where some of those things are delayed longer. You know, so it's kind of a mixed bag. And we're seeing some things that are a little more favorable, but we're seeing some things that are not budging at all. You know, Jamie from ACON was telling me today that there are still contractors or vendors or subcontractors who won't give you more than a one-day quote. You know, here's my quote today, phone me tomorrow if you want to order tomorrow. So we're still running into some of those challenges. Our hope also was that some of what you're hearing now today with things easing up a bit are starting to translate into those lower prices. I can't tell you that across the board. I would say, again, it sort of depends on what we're looking at. But we are pursuing those things, you know, as we speak.
Great, thank you. And a big appreciation, because I was in on the early meetings with you guys, and I don't know, that was, I don't know, a long time ago. It was pandemic before, I don't know, but thanks for all your work. I mean, for the whole team, it's been an amazing process, and I wanted to thank the City of Portland, who has been a partner in this whole process, and very positive and encouraging, and also they have a world of expertise in the whole water treatment plant. I think we're 2% of their total or something, or 3%. So I know we're just like a little microcosm. This is a big deal for us, and it's a small little speck for them, but they've been very willing to give their knowledge and their expertise, and so we appreciate that. So your department has been wonderful. Thank you.
Well, we're heavily invested. I just want to say we're heavily invested. I think you made the comment that, you know, we're starting to know each other. Things are pretty familiar here for us now, and I would say we're really trying to do everything we can to make this project go. This is an important project for our entire team, so we're really trying to do our best on that.
Right. And we know that you'll have the very best pricing possible.
We will.
We know that. We're counting on that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councilwoman. Anyone else? Questions? Okay. Okay. Thank you all very much. Really appreciate the time. Thank you, everyone, for being here today for this meeting. We look forward to hearing back from you all shortly. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. And if there's nothing else, we are adjourned.
Wow, it's light out.